All right, so we have some brutal news for the state of Minnesota coming from the vice president himself. He has announced Medicaid funding to that state has been frozen due to fraud. And of course, people are losing their mind. And we also have an update regarding the SAVED Act from Leader Thune himself. But first, I want you to hear what the vice president had to say and let me know if you agree with this or not. Take a listen.
Vice President J.D. Vance says the Trump administration will temporarily halt some Medicaid funding to the state of Minnesota over fraud concerns. President Trump's point man on his war against fraud says he wants to restore public faith in taxpayer-funded programs and bring justice to those who defrauded them.
We have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money.
Yeah, so this is a big announcement to say the least, and just brutal news for Minnesota once again, as the Trump administration will withhold the actual number here, $259 million in Minnesota Medicaid funds, citing fraud. There's more to it, of course. In fact, they also announced that they're going to be going after New York and California next. Guys, this is well overdue. This is something that should happen in every single administration. Fraud should always be at the top of the list because people are working hard to pay taxes. So it totally makes sense here. Let's go to J.D. Vance. Here's more of what the vice president had to say.
Want to be in a situation where the state of Minnesota is being so careless with federal tax dollars that we have to turn the screws on them a little bit so that they take this fraud seriously. You heard Dr. Oz say this. Tim Walz could call him, could call me, could call anybody in the administration, and we've given him 60 days to respond to this. All we need the governor and the administration in Minnesota to do is something quite simple, which is to show that before you give Medicaid funds to somebody, you're taking seriously whether they provided the services that they say that they're providing. And the fact that there are so many people handing out millions and billions of dollars of federal Medicaid money without even confirming that they're doing the thing that they say that they're doing, it's a disgrace. It's a defrauding of the American taxpayer, and we're stopping it.
Now, as expected, people are pushing back on this, including the governor himself, where he issued this statement. President Trump is weaponizing the entirety of the federal government to punish blue states like Minnesota. These cuts will be devastating for veterans, families with young kids, folks with disabilities, and working people across the state. Now, this particular story goes on to say that federal authorities in Minnesota have investigated the sweeping abuse of safety net programs for years. But in recent months, new reports, a viral video, and a flood of criticism from right-wing influencers, I just call them influencers, and politicians have drawn new national attention to the issue. And they deserve it. When you're talking about $18 billion of the total amount of money, and half of that is fraud, yeah, they deserve all of the attention that they're getting. Now, just so you guys have the right information, listen to Dr. Oz because he details an example of the actual fraud scheme itself. Take a listen.
Equipment. Most of you have not thought much about this category. These are the folks who they serve wheelchairs, canes, they sell knee braces, catheters, Foley catheters. Durable medical equipment suppliers, because they ship prostheses and these items, they're a great target for fraudsters. Here's what they do. They can steal the beneficiary number, and they never ship the product. They pretend to ship the product, but nothing ever gets sent out. So there's no cost of goods sold, there's no inventory, there's no payroll, no one works in the place, it's empty. But they generate millions of dollars of fake bills. There was a national DME fraud scheme that generated $1.1 billion recently in fraudulent orthotic brace orders. The beneficiaries whose numbers were stolen and used, they couldn't get those products. Imagine if you're at an insulin pump and someone steals your number and orders an insulin pump fictitiously, bills Medicare, and then you come and try to get this to deal with your diabetes. You don't get it. That actually happened.
Now, when I hear a story like that, you would think it wouldn't be a partisan issue. It's only a partisan issue because it's President Trump. It's his administration taking the fight to these fraudsters. That's the issue here. And that's why today Democrats could barely contain themselves in a hearing where what is being called a fraud czar is being nominated. Yes, in front of the Senate today, where this individual is going to be the figurehead when it comes to rooting out fraud in our social benefits. Listen to this.
Fraudsters should never be allowed to rip off the United States of America.
The man handpicked by President Trump to lead a new anti-fraud office inside the Justice Department came to Congress with a message.
Where no fraud is too big for the Department of Justice and no fraud is too small for the Department of Justice.
Some Democrats questioning whether the new position should even be established.
The worst examples of waste, fraud, and abuse in recent years are coming from inside the Trump administration. Want to root out fraud? Start at the top.
If confirmed, Colin McDonald will focus on Minnesota, where Republicans allege fraud is rampant. He also put a spotlight on elder fraud cases across the country.
And it's not just the grandmothers and the grandfathers, it's also their family members who bear the weight of these scams and the fraud that's perpetrated against them.
Democrats pointing to concerns about the independence of the new position, but McDonald, if confirmed, will report directly to the Attorney and Deputy Attorney General, who both shut down other anti-fraud units like the Consumer Protection Branch and Tax Division.
So every year around this time, many seniors, 65 years or older, are surprised to learn that their Medicare plan no longer covers the doctors they've been seeing. Then they talk about how confusing Medicare is and how the system is poorly designed by the government, because you can't trust them, and corrupt because of the insurance company. So what should you do if that is you? Call my friends at Chapter, because they are the only national advisor that compares and recommends every Medicare plan, and to ensure what? That it fits your exact needs. They've helped people save over $1,100 in their healthcare costs. They'll help you understand the enrollment process, options, and find ways to save on your healthcare. These guys are not going to push you around and force you to buy a plan you don't want or need. Their support is completely free. So if you're turning 65 soon or have questions about your Medicare coverage, please call them at 323-431-5200. Again, that number is 323-431-5200. Now, that all sounds good, of course, but not everybody is on board completely. Senator Roger Marshall out of the state of Kansas was on News Nation earlier, and he says we should actually pump the brakes. And if not, this should only be a temporary solution. Take a listen.
Obviously, we know that there's a massive amount of money in play potentially there in Minnesota. But here was a headline in your home state of Kansas there about $798,000 of potential fraud with Medicaid there. It leads to the question, where do you draw the line on this issue, Senator?
Well, I think number one is always to be compassionate, always trying to do the right thing. I hope that this is a very short pause. Medicaid is something that I have fought for. Republicans in our working family tax cuts actually increase funding for Medicaid. We want to make sure that it's prioritized for those who need it the most. That would be senior citizens and people with disabilities, moms with young children at home as well. So where to draw the line? I think that Americans want us to be frugal with their money. We want them to do the right thing. So I hope this is a very short, temporary situation in Minnesota.
See, this goes back to the conundrum for politicians and the American people. Sometimes we do not have the stomach for what we're asking for. So we're asking for the federal government to root out fraud. In order to do so effectively, efficiently, and quickly, they sometimes need to shut off the program. But to do that, innocent people might get hurt in the process. Can we stomach that? Can that be tolerated? There is no perfect way to do this. There is no, okay, let's kind of go slow at this. And there's always a trade-off, okay? And again, it's political suicide if innocent people start getting hurt. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out, of course. But I am, for one, supportive of freezing federal funding when fraud is occurring, because it puts people on notice, and it also makes sure that people push the buttons understand that the federal government is actually watching. That didn't happen under the previous administration. Now, speaking of a way to root out fraud or prevent it to begin with, the SAVE Act, right? Well, here is Leader Thune on Fox News earlier, providing a major update on that very piece of legislation. Take a listen.
When you look at the polling, though, out there, the Fox polling on voter ID, I mean, it is really remarkable. 84% of all voters out there believe in voter ID, required to show a valid form of state or federally issued photo identification to prove their citizenship. But take a look at where independents and even Democrats are. Democrats are at 70%, independents at 84%. This seems like a no-brainer. Are you going to put this bill on the floor even though you won't have the votes to pass it, just to get Democrats on the record? And if so, when?
Well, we will. We'll put the Democrats on the record. And it's a stark contrast, Aisha. The Democrats, even in the chamber last night, having to sit there and try and defend allowing non-citizens to vote in American elections. That is a losing proposition for them. So we will get a vote on it. And we are right now in the middle of a government shutdown, so we've got to try and get the government opened up first. But in due time, we will get that up on the floor. We will have a vote on it. We will make sure that the Democrats are on the record. It is a stark contrast between Republicans and Democrats about how they want to handle elections in this country. And this is going to put them, I think, in a very difficult position. It's an issue, if I were running as a Democrat in the midterm elections in November, I wouldn't want to have to defend.
All right. Okay. Why don't you guys answer this question in the comments section? Do you believe the SAVE Act will be passed when it's all said and done in this current session of Congress? Answer that. Yes or no? Just let me know what you guys think about that. All right, let's go to this panel. Will Cain show earlier today, a liberal is arguing that minorities will not be able to vote because of the SAVE Act. And yes, he is white. And yes, a black woman who is a Republican gave him a reality check. Take a listen.
I think the thing is, though, that substantially we all agree on that point. I just think that the reality is that an act like the SAVE Act is very likely more aimed at voter suppression and at keeping key demographics that the Republican Party does not want voting to not show out and vote. I think very often minority demographics.
That's not true.
No. So this is the thing where the suggestion is it's going to keep the black vote down. I've got two black panelists here. Ajwa?
That's not true.
Do you have ID and proof of citizenship?
Yeah, and if I need a copy of my birth certificate, it's just a matter of going online or going up to the department and asking for it and showing my information to get it. I mean, to say that it would negatively affect a minority group because they're somehow not educated enough to get these documents is completely outrageous.
Annie?
I mean, what could be more insulting than someone believing because the color of your skin, you can't get ID? I mean, I find this phenomenon so interesting, how you have white liberals speaking on black issues like they know what it's like to be black. Now, I don't care. Talk about whoever you want to talk about. But if you're going to talk about it, bring the facts, not rhetoric. That's exactly what he was doing.
Jude, you have been with us throughout this conversation. You are a self-described Democrat. I'm not sure that makes you necessarily sign up for a Cracker Jack box list of issues that you sign up for. And you raised your hand when you said, yeah, I think I would support the SAVE Act.
Yes, based on exactly how you described the SAVE Act. I haven't read it cover to cover, but based on the rules, the guidelines around exactly what you said, have a valid ID, have proof of citizenship, I would support the SAVE Act.
Now, if you guys had watched the show from last night when we were covering the State of the Union address, I shared my experience because my wife and I, we just moved to Texas. We got to get a Texas driver's license. And guess what? The requirements are the same. I got to provide a copy of my birth certificate. I got to show I am who I say I am. I got to prove I live where I say I live. And I have to provide supporting documentation. Now, for a moment there, I almost took the bait that Democrats want me to believe. Because of my skin color, they are essentially suppressing my ability to get a driver's license in the state of Texas. But wait, I remembered when I signed up for the military, they asked for everything, not just your social security card or your birth certificate, witness statements, the whole nine, full background check. Okay, I think you guys get where I'm going with it. But unfortunately, not everybody sees it that way. I mean, the Democrat on that panel, he sees it for what it is. It makes total sense. Now, let's go to Senator Amy Klobuchar. Here's what she had to say about it.
My calculation was 0.000005% of non-citizens register to vote. This requirement of the SAVE Act to provide proof of citizenship, passport, or birth certificate every time you vote, not just to register to vote, every time you vote, is actually, I think, going to hurt people in red states more than blue states.
You know, we had a ballot measure on this in Minnesota, and it was so interesting. In a lot of the rural areas, people were like, wait a minute, I have registered to vote, I am a legal voter, and now you're going to say I'm going to have to do this and this and this. Mail-in balloting would be very, very difficult to do under this bill, and that is incredibly popular, and this is what you point out on red states.
All right, well, why don't we use our logic, okay? Let's say the SAVE Act actually passes, and states implement it in the way that it's currently constructed. Will that obviously make it more difficult for certain people to register because they don't want to spend the time to get their birth certificate, etc.? Of course it will. But doesn't that happen when it comes to getting a driver's license? Doesn't that happen when it comes to joining the military? I mean, doesn't that happen when it comes to flying on an airplane? As of, I think it's next month to be accurate, if you don't have a real ID, you got to pay a $45 fee and potentially wait about an hour, which could delay your flight. I mean, a lot of people are going to be probably miss their flights as a result. So you're not going to be able to make everyone happy. We're trying to govern the masses. And sometimes that means we need to have an appropriate filter. I think the better question is, why are Democrats so defensive about the SAVE Act and illegal immigration? Me and you both know why that is, and I'll prove it to you. Check this out.
Secretary Noem said the quiet part out loud when she was in Arizona last week. This administration only wants, quote, the right people to vote. Their record is so bad, their only chance of staying in power this November is to rig the November elections, and we're going to stand up to it.
Yeah, one of the very few policy proposals he endorsed was indeed this so-called SAVE Act for that. So, Mark.
Okay, did you hear exactly what he said? There are two main talking points because they've obviously moved on from, well, black people can't get it, that didn't work. Well, married women can't get it, that doesn't work. Well, poor people can't get it, that doesn't work. So now what they're saying is red states won't be able to get it. And now they're saying, well, what's really happening is the Republicans are looking to steal the election. Now, what I find to be interesting is when the president were saying things like that, and he has plenty of times, they looked at him crazy. Now they want us to believe them. How does that work exactly? All right. Why don't we cap this story off with what the president actually said and why it totally makes sense. Take a listen.
And perhaps most importantly, I'm asking you to approve the Save America Act to stop illegal aliens and others who are unpermitted persons from voting in our sacred American elections. The cheating is rampant in our elections. It's rampant. It's very simple. All voters must show voter ID. All voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote. And no more crooked mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. None. And this should be an easy one. And by the way, it's polling at 89%, including Democrats, 89%.
All right, so let's get your thoughts in the comment section below. I think both these stories share the same principles. It's a huge contrast. On one side, the Republicans, particularly the Trump administration, they're seeking to do better by the taxpayer. They're seeking to root out fraud, whether that's in our elections or with our tax dollars regarding social benefits. And on the other side, Democrats are crying about it, and they're loud, which means they must be guilty of something. Well, I think that's the way that I see it. Why don't you share with me in the comment section the way that you see these stories? I really do believe that federal funds should be frozen when significant amount of fraud is exposed. Do you agree with that? Or do you believe innocent people will be hurt, so it's not worth the squeeze? And then what do you make of that panel on Will Cain's show where liberals are literally being programmed to believe black people are not going to be able to get voter ID? Just give me your thoughts and everything you got in the comment section below. All right, let's go to our next update. This is breaking news, matter of fact. The superintendent of Los Angeles Unified School District, his house was raided, his office was raided, and people are scrambling at this point. Also, Karen Bass, she was hit with a new lawsuit from the fire chief that she let go. This lawsuit claims that Karen Bass tried to cover it up and lied to the public regarding what actually happened that day. If you guys missed out on those updates and more, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.